He sits across from his therapist, finally ready to admit what he's been avoiding for years. He has a type, and his type is destroying his life. Not physically attractive women, though they usually are. Not successful women, though they often seem to be. His type is broken women, damaged women. Women who create the kind of passionate, intense, soul-crushing relationships that leave him emotionally devastated but somehow craving more. His last girlfriend was brilliant, beautiful, and completely unstable. Before her, there was the one with abandonment issues so severe she'd create fights just to see if he'd stay. Before that, the narcissist who made him question his own sanity while delivering the most intoxicating chemistry he'd ever experienced. Meanwhile, the healthy women, the ones who would actually make good partners, who bring stability and genuine love to relationships, bore him to tears. They're too easy, too predictable, too safe. He knows this makes no logical sense, but his heart doesn't operate on logic. It operates on something darker, more complex, more self-destructive. You know this man. Maybe you are this man. The guy who can spot red flags from a mile away but chooses to ignore them. The man who says he wants a healthy relationship but keeps choosing partners who make healthy relationships impossible. The person who complains about dating chaos while actively seeking out the exact type of women who create chaos. Today, I'm going to reveal the hidden psychology behind why intelligent, successful men consistently choose women who hurt them, and why the women who would actually love them properly feel wrong, boring, or somehow threatening. Because understanding these patterns isn't just about improving your dating life, it's about understanding the unconscious forces that drive you toward destruction when you consciously want construction. Here's the first brutal truth about bad relationship choices. Your emotional wounds have developed a sophisticated detection system that can identify similar wounds in others from across a crowded room. This isn't conscious attraction. It's unconscious recognition. Your damaged parts are calling out to her damaged parts, creating what feels like chemistry, but is actually just trauma finding its perfect match. Think of emotional wounds like radio frequencies. Each traumatic experience, every childhood dysfunction, every heartbreak creates a specific signal that broadcasts invisibly to others operating on the same frequency. When you meet someone whose wounds match yours, both of your signals suddenly amplify, creating an intensity that feels like destiny, but is actually just damage recognizing damage. This wound recognition system explains why you can feel instant chemistry with someone you've just met while feeling nothing for objectively better partners you've known for months. Your wounds aren't responding to her personality, her values, or her potential as a life partner. They're responding to the familiar pain patterns that match your own internal landscape. The most insidious part of this system is how good it feels in the moment. When your wounds recognize hers, it creates a sensation of being deeply understood, completely seen, perfectly matched. You feel like you've found your soulmate, your missing piece, your perfect complement. What you've actually found is your perfect dysfunction partner, someone whose brokenness fits your brokenness, like a key fits a lock. But here's where it gets truly destructive. Together, you don't heal each other's wounds. You recreate them. Your combined damage doesn't cancel out, it compounds. You end up reenacting the original traumas that created your wounds in the first place, except now you're both the victim and the perpetrator, both the wounded child and the wounding parent. This creates what I call the familiar pain principle, the devastating reality that psychological pain feels comfortable when it matches the pain you experienced during your formative years. It doesn't feel good, but it feels right. It doesn't make you happy, but it makes you feel at home. The wound recognition system keeps you trapped in relationships that recreate your original trauma because your unconscious mind believes that if you can just get this dynamic right this time, you'll finally heal the original wound. But you can't heal wounds by reopening them repeatedly with people who are just as damaged as you are. The second reason intelligent men choose destructive women is that low self-esteem creates what I call a targeting algorithm that automatically filters out partners who are too healthy, too accomplished, or too put together. Your unconscious mind protects you from the pain of potential rejection by ensuring you only pursue women who are as flawed as you believe yourself to be. This algorithm operates like a hunter who knows his limitations. If you don't think highly of yourself, you don't aim for the prize gazelles. You target the ones with obvious defects because you assume those are the only ones you can catch. If you believe you're fundamentally flawed, you seek out fundamentally flawed partners because they feel achievable in a way that healthy partners don't. The algorithm is particularly cruel because it disguises itself as preference. You don't consciously think, I have low self-worth, so I should date damaged women. Instead, you find yourself naturally attracted to chaos, drawn to complexity, excited by the challenge of trying to love someone who's clearly incapable of loving you back properly. Meanwhile, stable women feel wrong not because there's anything wrong with them, but because they're operating at a level of emotional health that your algorithm has determined is out of your league. They're too functional for someone who sees himself as dysfunctional. They're too together for someone who believes he's fundamentally broken. This creates a devastating feedback loop where your bad relationship choices reinforce your low self-worth, which reinforces your targeting algorithm, which ensures you keep making bad relationship choices. Each failed relationship with a damaged woman confirms your belief that you don't deserve better, which makes you even more likely to choose damaged women in the future. The algorithm also explains why you might have no trouble being confident in other areas of your life, while being completely intimidated by healthy relationships. Your professional success, social skills, and general competence don't override the deep programming that tells you successful relationships are for other people. People who are somehow more worthy, more healed, more deserving of uncomplicated love. Breaking this algorithm requires more than just deciding to date better women. It requires fundamentally changing how you see yourself, what you believe you deserve, and what level of partner you genuinely think you can attract and keep. Here's the most counterintuitive reason men choose dysfunction. Broken women feel safer than healthy ones. This sounds backwards until you understand the psychology of vulnerability and the terrifying prospect of actually getting everything you say you want. Healthy women represent the possibility of real love, genuine partnership, and lasting happiness, which means they also represent the possibility of losing real love, genuine partnership, and lasting happiness. Broken women represent passion without permanence, intensity without commitment, chemistry without consequence. You can lose them without losing your dreams because they were never going to fulfill your dreams anyway. This safety paradox explains why you might feel more comfortable telling intimate secrets to a stranger in a bar than to your wife of 10 years. The stranger disappears after one conversation. The wife remembers everything forever. The stranger has no power to use your vulnerabilities against you. The wife holds your entire emotional future in her hands. Dysfunction provides what I call relationship insurance against the ultimate vulnerability of being completely known and accepted by someone capable of actually loving you. If she's obviously flawed, if the relationship is clearly temporary, if the whole situation is demonstrably unsustainable, then you never have to face the terrifying possibility of being truly seen by someone who might actually stay. The paradox creates what psychologists call approach avoidance behavior, where you simultaneously seek and sabotage the very thing you claim to want most. You pursue relationships while unconsciously choosing partners who make real relationships impossible. You create scenarios where you can experience the thrill of connection without the risk of genuine intimacy. This safety-seeking behavior explains why you might find yourself in relationships that you never intended to take seriously, but that somehow drag on for months or years. You chose someone who was obviously wrong for long-term partnership, thinking you'd have some fun and move on, but the safety of knowing it was never going anywhere allowed you to invest more of yourself than you would have with someone who represented actual potential. The most devastating aspect of this paradox is how it keeps you perpetually single, even when you're in relationships. You're never truly available to damaged partners because you know they're not right for you. You're never truly available to healthy partners because they terrify you. You end up emotionally unavailable to everyone, including yourself. If you're starting to recognize these patterns in your own dating history and want to understand more about how unconscious psychology drives relationship choices, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. The dynamics I'm explaining today represent years of studying why people consistently choose partners who hurt them while avoiding partners who would love them, and there's much more depth to explore in upcoming videos about attachment, trauma, and relationship psychology. Men who consistently choose dysfunction have developed what I call a chaos comfort zone, a psychological space where conflict feels normal, drama feels familiar, and peace feels suspicious. If you grew up in an environment where emotional volatility was the baseline, stability doesn't feel like relief, it feels like the calm before the storm. This comfort zone explains why healthy relationships can feel boring, predictable, or somehow off to men who are accustomed to relationship chaos. Your nervous system has been calibrated to expect emotional intensity, constant negotiation, and regular crises. When these elements are absent, you don't feel peaceful. You feel anxious about when the other shoe is going to drop. The comfort zone also explains why you might find yourself creating drama in stable relationships or feeling restless when things are going too well. Your psychological homeostasis is set to chaos frequency, and sustained harmony feels as uncomfortable as sustained conflict would feel to someone from a healthy background. This chaos calibration happens during childhood, when your developing brain learns what normal looks like based on your family environment. If your parents fought constantly, if there was addiction in the house, if emotional volatility was the daily reality, then your brain catalogued high-intensity emotional experiences as standard operating procedure. As an adult, you unconsciously seek partners who will recreate this familiar emotional environment. Not because you enjoy chaos, but because chaos feels like home. Not because you want conflict, but because the absence of conflict triggers anxiety about what might be building beneath the surface. The comfort zone creates what I call drama dependency, where you become psychologically addicted to the neurochemical cocktail that intense relationships provide. The highs and lows, the passion and pain, the constant emotional stimulation become something your brain craves like a drug. Healthy relationships can't compete with this neurochemical intensity because they operate on different psychological frequencies. Stable love feels flat compared to volatile passion. Consistent affection feels boring compared to intermittent reward schedules. Reliable partnership feels predictable compared to constant uncertainty about where you stand. Breaking out of the chaos comfort zone requires gradually expanding your tolerance for peace, stability, and emotional consistency. It means learning to find excitement in growth rather than crisis, intensity in depth rather than drama, passion in building rather than burning. There's a devastating psychological truth that most men don't understand. Your mind gravitates toward what feels familiar, even when what feels familiar is pain, dysfunction, and relationship disaster. This isn't masochism, it's how human psychology works. The known quantities, even when they're destructive, feel safer than unknown quantities, even when they're potentially wonderful. This principle explains why you can meet a woman who checks every box on your conscious wish list: kind, attractive, successful, available, interested in you, and feel absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, you can meet a woman who embodies everything you know you should avoid and feel instantly captivated. Your conscious mind knows what's good for you, but your unconscious mind is programmed to seek what's familiar. The familiarity principle operates below the level of rational thought. It's not a decision you make. It's a gravitational pull toward relationship patterns that match your early experiences with love, attachment, and intimacy. If your first models of love involved pain, uncertainty, and emotional volatility, then those elements become associated with authentic connection in your unconscious mind. This creates what I call love confusion, where you mistake intensity for intimacy, chaos for chemistry, and trauma bonding for true connection. You genuinely believe you're choosing partners based on attraction and compatibility, when you're actually choosing partners based on their ability to recreate familiar patterns of emotional experience. The principle also explains why relationship advice often feels irrelevant or impossible to follow. People tell you to choose better partners or avoid red flags, but they don't understand that your attraction system is operating on familiarity algorithms rather than quality assessments. You're not failing to see red flags. You're attracted to red flags because they signal familiar territory. The most insidious aspect of this principle is how it makes healing feel wrong and dysfunction feel right. As you become healthier through therapy, personal growth, or life experience, you might find yourself feeling disconnected from your old relationship patterns, but also feeling disconnected from your sense of what love is supposed to feel like. This creates temporary confusion where you're no longer attracted to obvious dysfunction, but not yet attracted to obvious health. You're in a transitional space where your old programming is fading, but your new programming hasn't fully developed. This is normal, but it can feel disorienting and make you doubt whether you're actually growing or just becoming numb. One of the most confusing aspects of this psychology is how men can be incredibly successful in every other area of life while being complete disasters in relationships. You can run companies, lead teams, make excellent decisions under pressure, and demonstrate sophisticated judgment about everything except the women you choose to date. This disconnect happens because professional success and relationship success require different types of psychological health. You can achieve career goals through willpower, intelligence, and strategic thinking, even if you're emotionally wounded. But you can't create healthy relationships without emotional health, self-awareness, and the ability to be vulnerable with another person. The disconnect also occurs because work environments provide clear feedback about what works and what doesn't. Bad business decisions create obvious consequences that force you to adjust your approach. Bad relationship decisions often create complex emotional consequences that are easy to rationalize, blame on external factors, or misinterpret as signs that you need to try harder rather than try differently. Professional achievement can actually mask relationship dysfunction by providing alternative sources of validation, identity, and self-worth. When you're successful at work, it's easier to convince yourself that your relationship problems are just bad luck, poor timing, or the fault of the women you're choosing rather than the result of deeper psychological patterns. The disconnect becomes particularly pronounced for high-achieving men because success can create what I call competence confusion. The belief that being good at difficult things means you should be good at all difficult things, including navigating complex emotional dynamics with damaged partners. This confusion leads to what I call the project approach to relationships, where you treat fixing broken women like solving business problems. You apply analytical thinking, strategic planning, and persistent effort to relationship challenges that actually require emotional intelligence, psychological insight, and sometimes the wisdom to walk away. The project approach fails because relationship dysfunction isn't a problem to be solved. It's a pattern to be recognized and avoided. You can't logic your way into healthy relationships any more than you can think your way into being attracted to different types of people. Here's the hopeful truth that emerges from understanding these patterns. As you heal your own psychological wounds, your attraction system naturally evolves toward healthier partners. This isn't something you have to force or fake. It's something that happens organically as your internal landscape changes. When you address the original traumas that created your wound recognition system, you stop broadcasting the emotional frequencies that attract damaged partners. When you build genuine self-worth, your targeting algorithm automatically adjusts to include higher quality options. When you expand your comfort zone, you become capable of appreciating the peace and stability that healthy relationships provide. This evolution doesn't happen overnight, and it can't be rushed through willpower or positive thinking. It requires actual psychological work, therapy, personal development, healing practices, life experiences that gradually build your capacity for healthy intimacy and genuine vulnerability. The evolution also requires time and patience with yourself as your attraction system recalibrates. You might go through periods where you're not attracted to anyone because your old patterns no longer work, but your new patterns haven't fully developed. This is normal and temporary, but it can feel concerning if you don't understand it's part of the growth process. As the evolution progresses, you'll notice that stable women start feeling less boring and more appealing. Their consistency begins to feel like reliability rather than predictability. Their emotional health begins to feel like strength rather than simplicity. Their lack of drama begins to feel like peace rather than emptiness. The most profound shift happens when you realize that choosing healthy partners doesn't mean settling for less intensity. It means accessing a different type of intensity. The passion that comes from building something together, the excitement that comes from mutual growth, the chemistry that comes from genuine compatibility rather than trauma bonding. Eventually, if you stick with the healing process, you reach a point where dysfunctional partners lose their appeal entirely. Not because you're forcing yourself to avoid them, but because they no longer match your internal frequency. Your wound recognition system has been replaced by a health recognition system that gravitates toward partners who complement your growth rather than your damage. Understanding these psychological dynamics isn't just about improving your own relationship choices, it's about recognizing a universal pattern that affects both men and women in different but parallel ways. Women who consistently choose unavailable men, bad boys, or emotionally distant partners are operating under similar psychological programming, just with different surface manifestations. The pattern always involves some combination of wound recognition, self-worth issues, safety seeking through dysfunction, and comfort zone maintenance. The specific behaviors might look different. Women might choose emotional unavailability, while men choose dramatic instability. But the underlying psychology is remarkably consistent. This pattern recognition helps explain why traditional dating advice often fails so spectacularly. Telling someone to choose better partners without addressing the psychological reasons they're attracted to problematic partners is like telling someone to choose healthier food without addressing their taste preferences, emotional eating patterns, or metabolic issues. The pattern also explains why some people seem to naturally attract healthy relationships, while others struggle despite their best conscious efforts. It's not about luck, timing, or being in the right place at the right time. It's about having psychological programming that aligns with healthy relationship dynamics rather than destructive ones. Recognizing the universality of these patterns can provide both comfort and motivation. Comfort because it helps you understand that your relationship struggles aren't unique personal failures. They're common human responses to psychological wounding. Motivation because it shows you that if the patterns are learnable, they're also unlearnable. Changing these deep psychological patterns isn't a quick fix or a simple mindset shift. It's a gradual transformation that typically takes months or years depending on the depth of the original wounding and the intensity of your commitment to healing. The timeline usually begins with recognition, understanding that your relationship patterns are driven by unconscious psychology rather than conscious choice. This recognition can be uncomfortable because it means taking responsibility for patterns you didn't know you were creating, but it's also liberating because it means you have more control than you realized. The next phase involves active healing work, therapy, personal development, addressing the original wounds that created your attraction patterns. This phase can be challenging because it requires revisiting painful experiences and changing fundamental beliefs about yourself, love, and relationships. The middle phase is often the most difficult because you're in transition between old patterns and new ones. You might feel less attracted to your usual type, but not yet attracted to healthier alternatives. This can create temporary confusion about what you actually want and whether you're making progress or just becoming more isolated. The later phases involve gradual recalibration, where your attraction system slowly adjusts to appreciate different qualities in potential partners. You start noticing that stable women are more appealing, that drama feels exhausting rather than exciting, that healthy relationships offer their own form of intensity and passion. The final phase involves integration, where your new attraction patterns become natural and automatic. You don't have to think about avoiding dysfunction or forcing yourself to appreciate health. Your preferences have authentically evolved to align with your psychological growth. Throughout this timeline, it's crucial to be patient with yourself and trust the process even when progress feels slow or uncertain. Psychological change operates on different timelines than conscious decision-making, and sustainable transformation requires allowing your unconscious patterns to catch up with your conscious intentions. Understanding the psychology behind bad relationship choices is valuable, but it's only useful if you can translate that understanding into practical changes in how you approach dating and relationships. This implementation requires both inner work and outer strategies. The inner work involves consistently addressing the psychological roots of your attraction patterns through whatever healing modalities work for you: therapy, meditation, journaling, personal development programs, spiritual practices. The key is consistency rather than intensity, regular attention to your psychological health rather than dramatic attempts at instant transformation. The outer work involves gradually exposing yourself to different types of women and relationship dynamics, even when they don't immediately feel exciting or familiar. This might mean accepting dates with women who seem too stable or too healthy, not because you're trying to force attraction, but because you're expanding your experience base and giving your psychology room to evolve. Implementation also requires developing what I call pattern awareness, the ability to recognize when you're falling into old attraction patterns and make conscious choices about whether to follow those impulses or explore different options. This isn't about suppressing your authentic preferences, but about distinguishing between preferences rooted in health and preferences rooted in wounding. The practical work includes building your self-worth through achievements, experiences, and relationships that reinforce your value as a person. This might involve pursuing goals that challenge you, developing skills that make you proud of yourself, or cultivating friendships that reflect back your positive qualities. Most importantly, Implementation requires patience with the timeline and trust in the process. Your attraction patterns developed over years or decades. Changing them sustainably will also take time. The goal isn't to force immediate attraction to different types of women, but to create conditions where natural attraction to healthier partners can emerge. If this analysis has helped you understand the hidden psychology behind your relationship patterns and want to learn more about the healing process that can transform your attraction system, subscribe to this channel for more insights into the psychology of attachment, trauma, and relationship dynamics. Hit that notification bell because understanding these deeper patterns could be the key to finally breaking cycles that have kept you trapped in unfulfilling relationships. Share this video with any man who's ready to understand why he keeps choosing partners who hurt him and how to begin attracting partners who can actually love him properly. The goal isn't to blame yourself for patterns you didn't consciously create or to shame yourself for being attracted to people who weren't good for you. The goal is to understand that attraction is learnable and changeable, that psychological wounds can be healed, and that the relationships you've always wanted are possible once you become the person who's psychologically prepared to have them. Your bad relationship choices weren't character flaws or moral failures. They were psychological adaptations to emotional wounds that made perfect sense at the time. But adaptations that once protected you can become prisons that limit you, and prisons that once felt safe can become obstacles to the genuine love and partnership you actually deserve. The men who break these patterns aren't necessarily smarter, luckier, or more deserving than those who don't. They're simply men who recognized the patterns, committed to the healing process, and gave themselves enough time and patience to allow their psychology to evolve. The same transformation is available to anyone willing to do the work. The only question is whether you're ready to begin.